Also a way to explore how certain characters would react in certain situations. So if someone who is a little more introverted is put into somewhere out of their comfort zone, how they navigate it, what their reaction is to their, surrounding, that is also something that you can really explore in that space.
Yeah, that's awesome. And DL has said a story can help us make sense of the world and inspire action if told well. Totally. Yeah, these are really good answers. Uh, an explanation that I like a lot, is like it's this description of what makes people different than animals. This idea that if you have a cage full of monkeys with the lock, and one monkey figures out how to pick the lock, that monkey leaves, the door shuts behind him, and the next monkey comes up to the lock, has to figure it out, eventually leaves, shut, and then one by one they all figure it out how to get out of the cage. But for people, what happens is one person gets to the lock, figures it out, tells everybody, and then they all leave together. Um, and I love that definition of what culture is. And that reminds me, Rangoli, of what you're saying of like passing down your cultural heritage. Um, this and also like art being about conflict and or like an introvert's like you're saying a personal journey to become more extroverted. It's this like I think stories are like how we as humans have like um taught each other how to survive or how to live. Like it's especially if you think before there's like written language in order to pass down information that you want to be remembered. It's like way if you tell it within a story that like both gets remembered and spread if the story is good. So it's this way of like telling everybody how to unlock this lock, so that like we're not all hitting the lock and having to figure it out on our own. Um, and something I think about too is like it used to be we didn't have written language, so you don't have like the same way, like you can't just like write down a bunch of facts and pass it along. And now our challenge is sort of different. We have writing, but it's the with the internet and with the advent of AI compounds this. Like there's so much content, there's so much information that I think stories still play this role um, of being memorable and of sticking out and of sticking with people. So I think there's still like a very relevant use for them for us as we're telling stories. Like telling a good story is the way to actually get your information across when there's like a ton of information out there. Um, oh, Isha says also the sense of catharsis from writing a story. Yeah, David Mamet, who I'll quote a couple times in this discussion, says that a story needs to relieve the audience of their consciousness, um, which I like a lot. It's like it's about lifting your reader or your viewer out of all the things that they have going on. It's like giving them a break from their life for the hour and a half or 2 hours, or if it's a novel, 10 hours that you have them. And I think I don't know, I like that a lot. Um, and here, I'll put this quote in the chat. Andrew Fletcher, who is a Scottish songwriter, has said, here we go, make sure it's going to everybody. Um, He said, if I can write the songs of a nation, I don't care who writes their laws. This idea that the stories, the narrative that a culture has, um, can be far more important than the like actual written rules. So it's a big task, or it's like a very lofty thing, even if it's, around the dinner table. Um, Okay, so backing up a little bit. If we're starting with the story as like a main character who wants something, what is character? How, like, what makes somebody who they are, like, is a lofty way of putting it. But how do you make a character? What goes into it?
I think it's sort of like having a well-rounded personality. I think like a person has likes and dislikes. There's a certain situation they grew up in. There's a way they react or respond to situations. So I think like when you meet a person, like you know so many things about them. So I think a character should also have all those elements for it to become a rounded character. Otherwise, it becomes a very one-dimensional character like you have in several movies. I think.
Yeah, totally.
I think a character is anyone who takes the story forward. If there is a plot in mind, if there is a world, that character kind of just has to make it move forward in some way. Like you can have like this excellent world built, but like Remya said, if it's not a well-rounded character, then it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to really move forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think like world building is a big thing that gets talked about, and world building is great, but yes, you can have like you can create all whole languages and economies and everything for where your story takes place, but if you don't have a character or characters, like nothing will actually happen. It won't be a story. Yeah.
I'm also reminded of like I don't know literature class where they talk about either it's Hamasha or it's Hubri, that the character has a flaw, or like that the character is trying to sort of also move past but cannot move past. So a lot of their journey or their arch is like sort of jostling with this flaw. And then you have other characters sort of rubbing off of that flaw or that personality, and that's how that also then sort of informs the scripting, like the world that the character lives in. So yeah, I think that flaw is also something. So when everybody says rounded, like it's also the flaws and the unflaws, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how you're talking about like the other characters are it's like, well, as a writer too, a lot of times you're putting in other characters who are specifically there to aggravate that flaw, like they're the worst person this character could encounter as far as like the one that's going to challenge them the most. Malvika says repetitions of certain aspects that hold true at various points in time during the story can be looked at through a macro or micro lens. Yeah. Um, this I'll drop another quote. This is by Aristotle. Um, that character is just habitual action, which I think is really interesting. Like Remya, you're saying like they're well-rounded and they have backstories and likes and dislikes, and that's definitely true. But especially in a movie, as opposed to something where you can like be giving the characters inner dialogue a lot. And because movies are so visual, um, the character is illustrated through their actions. And like the more we can see, like the more repetition that the audience sees of the character being themselves in all these different ways over and over, the better. Um, and I like this too because I think it's true in story, but there's a sense of like it's true in life as well. Like we kind of are what we do over and over, whether that's like a thought um or an action. It's like that's that truly is what forms who we are, I think, at our truest level. So I like that quote quite a bit. Um, yeah, and something with character is this is something I struggle with. A lot of times if I have an idea, It will be around a circumstance, or a setting, and that will feel like a story. But what it is really is a premise. It's sort of like, wouldn't it be interesting if X, Y, or Z happened? Like a script I'm working on right now is like if this bachelorette party goes on a bachelorette trip and then has to encounter the zombie apocalypse. It's like this group of women who are like having to like do something very much outside of their comfort zone. Um, which I'm excited about, but that's essentially a premise. And premises are seductive, but they're not stories. You don't have anything that's actually engaging until you have a character, until I answer like, okay, but who are they? Who are they specifically? And and can they be interesting and compelling without the zombies? Um, And for me, at least, I can come up with a bunch of premises, but like doing characters is quite a bit harder. And I've listened to interviews with the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, which is a big short story magazine for that genre. And what the editor has said, like we've basically heard every premise ever. Like, what if this happened? Like, we've heard it all. What we're looking for are interesting characters. So yeah, I took that to heart. Character's very important. Um, and from here on out, I will talk very little about it because I would like to talk about story structure. Um, and Hollywood Hollywood specifically has a fairly tight structure that isn't the only way to tell a story. Um, but for whatever reason, it seems to be a fairly tried and true way. People seem to really like this. And in an industry that's like, when it's an art form that's so expensive to make, the sort of like surefire methods tend to be used, right? Because you're not going to take as big of risks formally, potentially, when you know you have to make back however many millions of dollars. Um, but at the end of the day, I'd like to share it because one, it seems very popular and successful. People seem to really like it. And two, as a tool to use in your storytelling or to not use, sort of intentionally. Um, And here we go. Let's see. I think I might be able to share now. Cool. Let me go into presentation mode. Okay. And this is a quote from Craig Mazin, who is a screenwriter and one of the two people who does the Script Notes podcast. And he's talking about story structure. He says, it's a fancy word for saying this is what happens, this is who it happens to, and this is why. Everybody who grows up in any family that's even moderately sized, or even if you just see your extended family at Christmas, doesn't matter. Everybody knows that there's somebody that's going to sit around and tell a story that is so boring and bad, but you also know there's somebody who's great at it. When that one starts telling a story, everybody leans forward because they know how to do it. How you begin, how you middle, how you end. What's the point? How it all comes around and coheres together. So this is like beyond what a story is and really like how the story is told. What information you put in, when you put it in, what you highlight, what you leave out. Um, and at the end of the day, though, the only rule is don't be boring. So you can use this format, you can break this format. Um, as long as you're not being boring, you're doing it. Okay. So to start out, there's a screenplay is traditionally broken up into 3 acts. And this already is kind of breaking that. This is the teaser, a cold open. This is kind of a bonus act right in the beginning. Um, it's not, you don't need it in all of your stories, but it's kind of a freebie if you want it. And it's generally the first 5 pages or less. And remember, it's like 1 minute per page. So you get about 5 minutes to do something. Like it can do a couple things. It can be a standalone set piece before the credits. Like this is like um James Bond, I feel like does this a lot, or action movies. It'll launch you into something, into a big set piece, into a big chase scene, into Bond doing something crazy that doesn't necessarily have to do with the rest of the story. Like it sets up sort of the mood and tone and kind of like gives you like this is what you're in for. Um, and that can be useful because as we'll see next, stories need to start out with kind of a lot of information to get you to introduce to everything. And your teaser or cold open can be a way to give, like if you're an action movie, you can start with a big car chase before you start being like, this is so and so, etc. So you like get people hooked or bought into the movie. Um, Sometimes this can be uh, something that breaks chronology, something from later on in the movie. That's like, again, it's being this like little carrot of like, this is coming up, this is happening later. Don't you want to see how we get there? Um, yeah, it can be informational or for excitement. Another way, and I'd like to show this clip, we'll see if it works, is it can be a character introduction. So you can start out um, with something about the character that again doesn't have to do with the story, the current story at all. It just shows you who they are in another setting. And so for Tommy Boy, hopefully it's still showing this. We're gonna get to see Tommy Boy as a kid. So this is a different actor than Chris Farley. This is like um, doing nothing for the plot other than showing you the person we're dealing with the rest of the movie.
I don't think you've added audio.
Oh, we're not able to hear anything.
We're not able to hear anything. I think you might have to add audio when you're Amy.
Hi, Amy, we can't hear anything. Maybe you can share the link in the chats.
Is it not sharing the sound or is it not going through?
We can
Not
see
sharing.
the video, but not the audio.
Let me see if I can fix that.
While sharing, there's a tiny dialog box which you might have to share audio.
Okay, here's the link. Um, here's screen sharing. Shoot, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll give this 1 minute, and if I can't figure it out, I'll move on. You're saying in a small thing, a small dialogue, or like a box to share audio? Where was this?
So generally, when you share the screen, there's a box. That's where you have to do it, I think.
Okay. Let me try to do it again. Aha! I found it. Thank you. Okay. Let's try this again. Is that working? Awesome.
Tommy, hurry up! You're gonna be late for school again.
Nice doggy, nice doggy. Holy snikey! Late again, Tommy? You're pathetic. Shut up, Richard. Hurry up.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, I'll go ahead and start that there. All right. What do we know about this character? I mean, first off, do we know anything about the movie other than the character? No, like I don't know what this movie's about. But what do we know about him?
We know that he's chronically late and for a
Yeah,
very long period of time.
yeah, he's like
Um,
been late since he was like, I don't know, 10. He's still
Yeah.
late. What else?
I don't know, I relate to him more, like as opposed to if they would have just shown this adult guy running behind and getting late somewhere. But since it began with how that's how he is, since he was a kid. So that sort of helped me to sort of relate to him and have more like sympathy towards him, that I feel for the guy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's something like, and maybe that's part of what it's doing. It's, showing him just as an adult, we'd be more like, oh my gosh, you know, get your shit together, man. But it's like you're saying, it's like, no, 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 this is like, yeah.
He's easy with the swearing. So, but because we see it when he's a kid, it's kind of endearing.
He's very clumsy. Yeah, from the lunch box to hitting everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, he runs into two things in that opening.
He also seems quite persistent. Like he doesn't go back home after losing the bus, or he doesn't actually be like, ah, I lost it, I'm going back. He really runs after it. So he's quite determined in that sense. That's quite cool. Found that to be
Yeah.
quite fun.
Yeah, I love that. Like he's never catching the bus, but you get the sense that he's always chasing it anyway. Cool. Okay, so yes, that's the teaser. Oh, it says this is reminding me of opening scenes of so many films, but in terms of giving context of the character, it reminds me of the film Up. Remind me, what is the teaser for Up? What is Up's first scene? Does anybody remember?
The whole scene, there's the whole journey of the couple, and then how this character got widowed, and then yeah, it suddenly reminded me of that for some reason.
Oh, that's right. It like makes you cry like right
Yeah,
away, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the story about the character's whole life, that's really cool. Yeah, and I hadn't thought about this, but like another function, not just giving information about the main character, but creating sympathy for the character. And like Up especially because he's this cranky old man. So, but you're like being like, I'm gonna show you why from the very beginning that you shouldn't just dismiss this guy or dislike this guy. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good insight. Um, After your teaser or cold open, if you have it, um, you've got the beginning of your film, the true beginning of your film. And generally, the first 10 pages are establishing the world of your film. And this is the ordinary world. Um, and this is important because what you're about to do is show a change, is show some sort of transformation. And like, it's like a before and after pick essentially. Like you're giving the audience what to compare everything else against. So if you don't have this establishing, here's the ordinary world, your audience isn't gonna know what the big deal is. So this is like you're you're introducing the audience to like what happens before everything goes crazy. Um, and let's see.
I had a question.
Go for it.
There's also a series that I recently saw, so like a web series in which they have
Mm-hmm.
starting scene. It's basically a crime thriller genre, and they actually show you the meat of the web show. Like they show you basically like it's a crime series, so they show you like the head of this man who's been killed, and the head is kind of severed and like kept there. So the first teaser is like this, and you just kept, you're then hooked to it. So I was also thinking that this opening sequence also like used differently for different genres of writing, and it could also mean like a lot more than just an introduction. Yeah, Patal.
Totally. Um, yes, definitely. And I think like especially when you're getting into your sort of specific genres, like your thrillers, your crime shows, your action movies, um, yeah, you're kind of being like, I promise this is an action movie, or like I promise this is like a tense thriller. Um, yeah, it's a way to get your audience like hooked or like, it's like the um, to get them to not turn like switch channels, things like that. Yeah, so I think it is definitely genre specific. Um, Before I show you my example, can anybody think of a movie like that does a good job or specifically shows like the in the beginning, this is the ordinary world?
Matilda,
What is it for
would that
Matilda?
would like showcasing like the ordinariness of like her childhood, which seems like disturbing to us, but to her it's like normal that her parents just leave her at like age 3 and she's making pancakes and playing around. So I don't know, that was just at the top of my head.
Yeah, that's a good example and good to show too that ordinary doesn't need to be ordinary to us. It's ordinary to the character. It's just like whatever has happened before the next thing that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I've got reminded of the movie Patterson and Perfect Days. So these were the two movies where the setting, like the establishing shot is very mundane, kind of a very disciplined kind of a life. So how like they repetitively show that to like, even metaphorically telling that how the character actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I got reminded of that.
Nice. Nabina says the Truman Show. The Let me go back to share screen. Oh, I hope I've shared my sound again. We'll find out. Um, the one that I think of classically is the Shire from Lord of the Rings as this
3
like
signs your straight hair is secretly wavy. 1, your hair is wavy when it's wet, but straight and puffy
Sorry
when
for
it's
the
dry.
ad. There we go. Can you hear the audio?
Yes.
Yes, great.
road goes ever on and on, and from the door it began how far ahead goes. I must follow if I...
You're late.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Jump us ahead a little
It's
bit.
wonderful to see you. No, Bilbo. He's got the whole place in an uproar.
Well, that should please him.
Half the Shire's been invited, and the rest of them are turning up anyway.
And so life in the Shire goes on, very much as it has this past age, full of its own comings and goings, with change coming slowly, if it comes at all. For things are made to endure in the Shire, passing from one generation to the next. There's always been a Baggins living here under the hill in Bag End.
And there always will be.
Okay. So yes, what have we learned about the ordinary world in this movie so far?
It's a very peaceful kind of a world with no disruptions. Like, things are very smooth. There's a set routine. Nothing really happens out of the ordinary, other than the appearance of the ring later on. So,
Also, the music and the colors are giving a very feel good kind of atmosphere. It's creating the colors, like all the yellow colors and the whatever it's being grown in the fields, the music. I
Yeah,
think.
it feels like nothing bad happens in that town.
Yeah, when I was rewatching it, I was noticing I had forgotten this, but not only do they show us, the people working in the fields and the colors and the music, there's even this voiceover that like further is saying like nothing ever happens here, nothing ever changes.
I was going to say that it feels like something is going to change. The sort of, what would I say, the urgency with how routine it is sort of a foreshadowing what's going to happen next. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you've been like waiting for this doomsday for like a long time and everything's going well, then something's like bound to go wrong. That feeling of just anticipation. That's true.
Yeah, that's totally true. That's well spotted. Like when he's like, there's always been a Baggins under, under the, or a Baggins in Bag End under the hill, and there always will be. It's like it's like certainly not true. Like as audiences, we're like, that definitely means the opposite, actually. Which makes me think a little bit about like truth in storytelling as far as like, and I think, you know, on the filmmaker's part, this is definitely intentional, right? Like they are trying to like get you to feel this anticipation of like, you know, what I'm telling you isn't true. But it's interesting how, you know, the voiceover can say one thing and like all of the colors and music and everything can be sort of telling one thing, but we know like the audience still knows what's going to happen or knows that like because this is being said, it means the opposite is coming next. Which is cool. That's a nice addition to like not just like showing something for which to compare future things, but setting up anticipation. It's almost like the nicer you make the world, you're already building in stakes because there's so much to lose, there's so much to risk in the beginning. Isha, you said The Matrix. How does The Matrix start?
I mean,
what's
I
the
was
normal
just correlating it to the red pill and the blue pill that you'd written about. So I just immediately thought of the Matrix, you know, how he's a cog in the machine at the beginning and then he's transported to the, you know, he's told about the simulation, he's transported to the other world. That's what
Yeah,
came to my mind just.
yeah, totally. That's a great segue. I'll come back to my slideshow. Yes, all right, so leading us into the inciting incident. So the normal world sets up like our baseline, also builds anticipation, you know, that's like this thing has been the same for so long, and then something happens. And frequently, and this is like part of that why now question from earlier. Generally, your main character, especially if it's like, you know, habitual action, your main character that's been doing the same thing over and over in the same setting, a lot of the times they get started on their adventure not because they wake up one day and just decide to do something different. Generally, something happens to them. And that's this inciting incident. And that a lot of times, like pretty frequently, is going to come on page 12 to 15. So it's like 12 to 15 minutes into your 90-minute or 2-hour story. Like that's about as much time that the audience wants to give you, you know, before they're like, okay, let's get on with it. And I will go ahead and show my clip. The one I think of is Finding Nemo.
There's nothing to see. Gather over there. Excuse me, is there anything I can do? I am a scientist, sir. Is there any problem?
You know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt things. He isn't a good swimmer, and I just think it's a little too soon for him to be out here unsupervised.
Well, I can assure you he's quite safe with me.
Look, I'm sure he is. But you have a large class, and he can get lost, you know, from sight if you're not looking. No, I'm not saying you're not looking.
Oh my gosh! Nemo's swimming out the sea!
Nemo! What do you think you're doing? You're gonna get stuck out there, and I'm gonna have to get you before another fish does. Get back here! I said get back here now! Stop! You take one more move, mister. Don't you dare! If you put one fin on that boat, are you listening to me? Don't touch the boat. Nemo!
He touched the butt.
You just pounded your little tail right back here, Nemo. That's right. You were in big trouble, young man. Do you hear me? I'm coming, Nemo!
Get under me, kids!
Oh no! Nemo!
All right. So what's going on in this scene?
Before it is established that Nemo, because he has one shorter fin, he can't, uh, his father doesn't let him go far into the far end of the sea. And Nemo here wants to rebel and wants to try it. And I think, yeah, that's what I remember. Like, I watched it really long time ago.
I think it sets up the conflict or the thing that happens later, like why the whole story happens. It just sets that up.
It also sends a message that you should always listen to your dad. Always listen to your dad.
It's funny, it's this scene. Nemo is much more active, right? Nemo is making the decision to go touch the boat, um, which makes him feel like the main character, because the person doing the most things often like driving the action feels like the main character. But as the movie as a whole, it's actually the dad who's our primary character. And this is the inciting incident in that this is essentially something that's happened to him. You know, his pattern has been overprotectiveness of his son. And like you're saying, his son rebels, and then his son is taken from him, which is the thing that sets up, you know, the dad's whole journey, Finding Nemo, the title of the movie. Yeah,
Very
Nabina.
close to what you said, no, about if a person is running, is he going to catch the bus and is he going to miss it? So, like, I think it's exactly like that.
Yeah. Do
But
you
like the
can you
question,
go for it?
it's almost like who is your audience, right? Because I really remember being so stressed out, being a child, watching this particular scene and just losing it, right? I'm getting the same feeling right now. I hate this scene. I hate the amount of stress it just causes the viewer. But it's equally like, okay, he needs to get him back. He just lost him, so it's gonna be the whole movie. You know, you already set that bit. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool, I guess.
Yeah, from what
I think
remember,
too.
sorry.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, from what I remember, right up until this point, the entire movie sets up this fear, you know. So we already acquire this fear. So the stress that Malvika you're feeling has been created by them in the first bit of the movie. You know?
I think the inciting incident, it's like back to the monkeys in the cage with the lock and things, like the stories, if it's like showing us something frequently, it's like what do we do when the bottom drops out? Like the inciting incident is frequently a conflict or a crisis, you know, something where it's like a disruption from um you know, the daily routine, and crisis, both in the sense that like there's danger and opportunity, right? It's like where you get um both in the sense like a lot of times something has gone wrong, something's been damaged, but also like maybe the character has a opportunity, has a window, you know, something where change can start to happen. um yeah, so I think it's like a way within the story a lot of times of like what sort of instructing the audience, what do we do when things change or when things, you know, like when things cannot go on as they have previously. Any other thoughts, uh, other examples of things like inciting incidents that come to mind? Oh, and I see like, man, I'm watching time. This has gone by so fast. Maybe actually I'll speed it up a little bit because I only have a few more minutes. I lost track. Sorry, everybody. I'm spending more time on the beginning because a lot of, and like my experience, the first act, the teaser and the first act are like the tightest and most similar for a lot of different stories in that um you have this you have the introductions of the characters, you have the introduction of the normal world, you have the inciting incident, and then you have the respond to the call in like the Joseph Campbell style, which is where the hero um starts to act, like goes on the beginning of their active journey, like they respond to the inciting incident. So the one that we won't watch this, but the Matrix is the red pill, blue pill is like a very sort of literal example of this. Like Neo has been um in his normal world, which is this like corporate he's a hacker, so but like within the sort of um normal rat race of being human. The inciting incident is that he meets Trinity. She tells him about the Matrix, it's like been introduced. And then he's to decide like to leave the Matrix or not. And is like literally given like the choice of the red pill or the blue pill. Um, and that's the beginning. And we get about 25 pages to do this. This is regardless of how long the ultimate movie is. So like the beginning isn't the first third. Uh, it's the first 25 pages, even if your movie's three hours long generally, where you can get more room storytelling wise is the middle. David Mamet says at the beginning of the second act, remind the audience who they love and who they hate. And that's like you're building the new world. You're meeting people. You're sort of paying off a lot of times on genre, what you've promised, your car scenes, your murders, whatever it is. And if we're thinking about this story structure as mirroring like the human life cycle, I think it makes sense. Like in the beginning, a lot of people's like developments, a lot of different things happen in people's lives as children, but people kind of go through the same progression. Like we come up as children, and as soon as we like leave childhood, like this is going into adulthood, and a lot of people's adulthoods look wildly different than one another. And so like act two, your middle is where you have a lot of flexibility to do what you want. If you've gotten people to buy in to your beginning, like here's where you get to play. The midpoint is cool. I like the midpoint because it tends to be like if the story structure is like this, if it's like you're going up a hill, then you're going down a hill. The midpoint is when you're basically revealing what your movie is really about. You're doing this thing where you're like hooking people, reeling people in, and about halfway through is where the hero, the audience learns like what the true journey is. It's not necessarily what they think they're on in the beginning. I think the midpoint is also your like last chance to introduce any new characters. You can get a little bit of energy adding an important person or important plot element right in the middle. But it's the last chance because as the audience feels that you're on the back half of the story, they don't want any new information. They just want consequences. Like you've set up the dominoes the first half, and then the second half, it's the dominoes should be falling. Whoopsie.
Hi, Mark.
I didn't mean to hit that. And then your last act, the last 25 pages. So like the length of the film, the middle is gonna like absorb that bulk, and you kind of get the end of it kind of mirrors the first as far as like how much time you get to really wrap things up. And this is it's downhill from here. We've reached our climax. We've reached the final boss battle, or like we're coming up to it. And from here on, it's like the hero is using all of the skills and all of the relationships that they've gained from the beginning. It's like they've gone through their transformation and now they're using their new abilities. Like for Neo in the Matrix, he's like using the slow motion and dodging the bullets. Like he's meeting his potential. Um, and then the end is basically, does the hero succeed or fail? It's the answer to the beginning. And the the ending matters a lot. Humans have a bias, like an ending bias, to where like the last thing that happens in any given interaction or experience is going to be weighted more heavily than any other time in that experience. So yeah, if you have a great movie that ends um, feebly, your audience is going to remember it less favorably than if you have a feeble movie that ends really well. So it's very important. And what they say about it is that the end should feel both surprising and inevitable. So it should be something that the audience doesn't see coming, and yet once it happens, it's like, of course, that was always going to be the way this story ended. And something that I've been thinking about again, like in mapping this to the human life cycle, is like that's quite consistent with death, this way in which like of course we're all going to die, and yet it seems impossible that we're going to die. Like it's like always a surprise that this is all going to come to an end, and yet like we know it is. So I think that's what we're looking for in our story endings as well. Something that feels both inevitable and impossible. Um, and then and then the return. There's frequently movies end at the very end with that primary relationship if a story is about two people. After the dragon is slain or whatever primary conflict has been taken care of, we see the character with their relationships again, and it's like the people in their life that sort of are able to tell us how this person really changed. Um, and yeah, I'm slightly over time there. Thanks for sticking with me. I rushed through everything past the inciting incident, but do people have any thoughts or any questions before we log off? Navina says, when we were writing our short film, because it was based out of our own experiences, we knew what the end was going to be like, but now we are trying to write completely fictional film. We are struggling to decide what the end would be. Yeah, that makes sense. That's tough.
We
You want
have
to
the
say more?
character and structure. We don't have the structure. We have the character and we have the beginning, but we are still not able to get to the end. Could you scenario?
How to come up with an ending? Um, Unfortunately, I think the answer is you just keep thinking about it until you come up with something cool. Like, also what helps is like what I like to do is if I'm writing in a particular genre, to go watch stuff in that genre, especially with a given question in my mind, because um it's enjoyable to watch other films and see how they're overcoming some of the stuff that I'm struggling with. But I will say something that's nice is like when you do find your ending that you're excited about, it makes writing the rest of it way easier. And a lot of times I'll kind of be actually writing backwards to where once you have your ending, actually like the creation process like goes this way where you're making sure everything is like setting up to hit that ending. So it's also this circumstance where it might be good to hold what you have currently sort of lightly, because your end will likely change what you have already, or will inform that. That's what I would say.
Also, I've heard some writers say that when you are stuck with how to carry the story forward or something, you give the problem to your characters.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good too. There's like a good kind of a good sign in that struggle, because if it's like if the ending seems too easy or too obvious to you, it may feel that way to your audience as well. So it's a good problem to have. All right. Thank you everybody for being here and for discussing with me. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you,
Thank
Amy.
you, Amy.
Much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Amy, for taking our time and being with us and, just, making us go through all these intricacies of screenwriting. And I really enjoyed, reading the script last time and going through all these videos and learning so much. I picked up a lot. I have a lot of questions also, but I think we're running short of time. Again, I'd just like to thank you for taking our time and really enjoyed this very organic, very fruitful discussion with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. And feel free if people have additional questions, if you want to send them, I'll
Would
be
you,
happy to answer them
yeah.
over email or,
All right. So anyone who has any other questions, you can just send it on the group and I'll compile a list and send it to Amy. Would you be sharing any assignment with the fellows as well?
I don't have any assignments, but I can send another reference. It's from the book Save the Cat, which is like quite prescriptive as it comes to these things. So I send it like with a grain of salt, being like, it's gonna be like, you have to do this. And I would say you do not have to do it, but to use it as feels useful, if that makes sense. And it'll be the breakdown of like his take on the Joseph Campbell hero's journey stuff. So I'll send that along.
Okay, so you can email it to me and I'll share it with everyone. And again, if anybody has any other questions, you can just ping it on the group, like ping me there and I'll share it with Amy. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for your time and all the valuable discussion, the insights that you brought to this discussion. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining in so late. And good morning, Amy. Thanks again.
Good morning. And everybody have a good night.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.